Hola, amigos, and welcome to the last show on Televida. It's been a while. I'm glad to see you. Today, we're going to mesmerize, hypnotize. We've got one of my best friends in the world, Rick Boltez. He's a hypnotist. He's going to be in our show. We might even be able to mesmerize Guillermo. Have Jimmy Kimmel put me on his show, Guillermo. Well, this hypnotist is a great guy. He's hypnotized. I've opened up for him for years. He's even hypnotized my daughter, because hypnotism has a lot of different applications. He hypnotized her not to kill me in my sleep, and knock on wood, it has worked so far. Tonight's guest on the last show, we have hypnotist Rick Boltez. You want to see what he does? Watch this.
What was your name again?
I don't know yet.
Sure. What's that?
I'll tell you when I figure it out.
I'm just trying to help you.
Well, it's pissing me off.
Good. Shake it. Here we go. Watch. Rubber nose. Open those eyes. Here we go. Straighten that head out. Excuse me.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Rick. I appreciate that.
Oh, it's an honor. Yeah, we've done a lot of stuff together, so I appreciate
We've done
you
a lot
having
of
me.
stuff together, and I've been working with you for over 10 years. How long have you been a hypnotist?
20 years, my friend. 20 years this year.
Any difference between hypnotism now and 20 years ago?
You know, it's funny you asked me that because I was thinking about that today on the way over here. And really the only difference is what I pack for shows when I tour. 20 years ago, as a young man, I packed liquor, condoms, and clean underwear. Now, I find myself having to pack Ensure, Viagra, and Depends.
It's a common step for all of us getting older.
Yes, I can't wait till I move up to the defibrillator age.
There you go.
Hypnotism,
I've always been intrigued about it, actually. And one of my favorite movies about hypnotism, I'm going to quiz you on this, is Office Space. You remember Office Space, right?
Sure.
He has the critical moment in his life when the hypnotist dies right in the middle of a session,
Right.
but he stays in it. So my fear is, can you come out? I mean, that's a common fear is that once you're hypnotized, if something happens to a hypnotist, are you stuck there and Neverland, or how does this work?
Well, you would be.
Okay.
Because you have to be intelligent to be
Exactly.
You have to be intelligent to be hypnotized in the first place. But no, seriously though, what it is it's a heightened state of awareness where the hypnotist is kind of the orchestrator of it, and he takes you to that altered state of mind. So afterwards, what would really normally happen, as long as he wasn't stimulating it, you would either fall off to sleep or wake up unharmed and wide awake.
Well, so if you're hypnotized, are you asleep?
No. The reason why they call it hypnosis, or you use the word mesmerize, which indicates, it says definition of sleep, you're not sleeping. You are actually in an altered state of mind, which mocks sleep physically. So if you were to look at the person, you would see somebody that appeared to be sleeping.
But
eyes are closed, they're relaxed, they're breathing, all that stuff. But no, they're not. They're just in an altered state of mind.
Well, hold on. What do you mean by altered state? I'm like, go a little deeper on that.
Okay, so how I would explain it, how I explain it to people in layman's terms, and that is that hypnosis is pretty simple. It's you're awake like we are right now. We're seeing and hearing everything around us. Where in hypnosis, you're not deep sleep and you're not awake. They call it the somnambulistic state. It's a big word that means
what?
The somnambulistic state. It's the big word that means really hypnosis state. Okay, and so you're in between the awaking state and the deep REM sleep, as they call it.
Okay, it's somewhere in between there.
Right, and so what happens is, in that somnambulistic state, again, word meaning hypnosis, basically, as long as the hypnotist is stimulating you in that state, you will not wake up unless there's an emergency, because an emergency will always override hypnosis.
Well, all right, if you're hypnotized and the phone rings, you're doing a show, phone rings.
Only if your subconscious mind looks at the hypnosis, or I'm sorry, the phone ringing as a emergency.
Trigger.
So during the hypnotic state or during the induction, I will always say no outside sounds or noises are going to interfere with you remaining in a hypnotic state unless an emergency arises. So it's up to the individual who is hypnotized whether they actually think that phone ringing is an emergency or it's just the phone ringing again, okay? So yes, they will either wake up or they'll ignore it depending on what threat level they put on it subconsciously. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Now let me ask you this, because I performed with you for a while. It's a very unique thing because you induct a lot of people in comedy stage hypnosis, and that's where I've run into Rick a lot, thankfully. You put about how many people up on stage?
Again, depending on the stage size, especially in a comedy setting, I try not to limit it, but I try not to have fewer than 10.
10.
Yeah.
And see, that seems like a lot of people. I mean, do you have to have a person wrangler? I mean, if somebody falls off, I mean, you can't be doing this and making sure everybody stays in their chairs and everything like that, is there?
You hope that the suggestions that you give will adhere and they'll remain in their chair unless they're asked to do so. During an active skit, like you've seen me do a lot of where they're moving and dancing and stuff all over, I have to be very observant. But in the state of hypnosis, your awareness of your surroundings is actually even more higher than it would be in the awakening state. So what happens is you actually are less likely to trip over something or each other in that state.
That's the induction stage. Is there a reason you play that kind of soothing music? What is the point of that?
Well, it's induction music, and I've seen people use simple stuff from, animal sounds or nature sounds, all the way up to what I use. What I use is it's been proven to be it changes the wavelength of your brain thought. So it's like it helps you to,
Beats.
Right, it helps you to induce the trance state. You don't necessarily need that, but I find that it helps me and my subjects to go deeper. I've been using the same one now for probably about 15 years.
So let me ask you this. Is there times when people in the audience get hypnotized watching the induction on stage?
Yes, more often than not. And
because they're concentrating more.
Well, yes and no. A lot of people that get hypnotized in the audience think they're ignoring it, and they're not. What they're trying to do is block it out, and in the same interim, it's actually sneaking up on them.
You mean it's kind of like don't look at the sun, and they look at the sun?
Right, and it's sneaking up on them because they're concentrating so much on not getting hypnotized that the subconscious is picking up on the suggestions, which is exactly what I want to do. I don't care what the conscious mind's doing. Usually when they get hypnotized, your conscious mind is going 100 miles a minute, and that's what I want it to do. I want it to give it something to do so I can break through and talk to the subconscious.
Okay, because a lot of times when you go to a comedy club, you might start out with like 10 or 15 people, and then you kind of know, and you just kind of go, you kind of say, get out of it. I mean,
right.
What does that mean? How do you know they're not in it?
Well, during the induction part, which is the part where we get everybody seated, we get the music going, and obviously everybody quiet, we start to do the hypnosis, okay? We start the process. And in there, a lot of people don't realize what we're doing. Sometimes we say stuff and people in the audience are probably going, wow, that was kind of weird. Or why did he do that? Well, it's all for us, basically. You've probably seen me do where I'll pick up their arm.
Yeah.
And it'll drop.
Yes.
And when it drops just freely like that, that means that they're going under. That's a deepener test for us. It has nothing to do. It does reinforce with the subject, but it also gives us a gauge of where they're at depth-wise.
So you know instinctually if there's some give, if he's acting like he's dropping his arm as opposed to a natural just drop.
Oh yeah, well, think about this. When you go to fall, what do your arms do? They stiffen or they go up.
Correct.
So when your eyes are closed and I have your arm and I drop it, either the automatic response of stopping it is going to happen, or if they're in hypnosis, it's just going to like a ton of weight.
Huh.
So that's a deepener, and so that's one of the things that we do during the induction, so that we have an idea where they're at, because everybody on stage is at a different depth.
Really?
Yep.
So ideally, sometimes you could weed down 15 people down to 8 people.
I've actually had corporate things where I've weeded them down from 15 people to 3.
Okay.
And corporate's a whole nother issue because you're dealing with people that are used to working with each other and nobody wants to be embarrassed, so they're more worried about that than they are relaxing.
All right, because on the clip we showed when we opened up, that was a corporate event, right?
Yes, that was in Hastings, Nebraska. That was a corporate event.
You see, I find that very interesting because a corporate hypnotism show is you're working with your peers where you work. That's a little bit different than the comedy club. Nobody knows each other. There's a sense of anonymity there.
Sure.
I would think corporate is much harder. I mean, do you really want to let yourself go in front of your boss and say, you such and such and yada, yada, yada?
Yeah, and that's it. That's why you use different techniques. Over the years, you learn that you use different inductions, you use different techniques. Sometimes it takes longer. And we were talking about earlier, and I'm sure you remember this, about rapport.
Yeah.
Rapport basically means trust, okay? And you have to build trust in these people. So that's why I come out, the comedy side of my show is at the beginning.
That builds rapport.
It's a monologue. You get people laughing, they're relaxed, then they realize you're just a normal person. You're not somebody that's gonna be waving a chicken over their head and chanting
Now,
things.
there's other people that are serious throughout the whole thing, right? And then there's comedy people, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in the comedy thing because you've done 10 or 15, 20 minutes of stand-up before you. I've worked with you. It's like, well, when's this guy going to start hypnotizing here?
Yeah, but that's all about setting up the rapport. Okay, it's all about setting up the rapport, getting them to laugh, and doing my thing. Because even though when you opened up for me, they were laughing and you were getting them to relax, you're not the one they have to trust in about 5 minutes. No. It's me.
They shouldn't trust me either. I'm a horrible person.
That's beside the whole point here. I don't trust you. That's why we travel different. That's why we travel separately.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do here. We've talked a little bit. Well, let me ask you a little bit about the hypnotherapy part of it.
Sure.
Does that work for weight loss, for smoking?
Yes.
My daughter did it for anxiety.
Yes. The difference between this is a simple difference between show and therapy. Now, you can go very, very deep in therapy. The deeper you go, there are more things you can achieve. Pain, like you can feel no pain. I've seen
people stick their hands over lighters and stuff like that.
Right. I watched for my clinical because I've got a background in psychology plus hypnosis. We watched a lady give a C-section under hypnosis with no pain medicine, no blocks.
Oh, hell to the nah.
Nothing.
Hell to the nah. Are you serious?
Yes, and she was singing a Boston song. What you do is you work with the doctor. It's more common now than what it used to be. I don't personally do it because I think that when a woman works with a woman on something like that, it's more personal and you have a better success rate. But yes, I've seen it happen. And the kid and the mom doesn't have all this extra medicine and stuff.
She was singing a Boston song?
Yeah, I can't remember what song it was. I can't remember.
Because I know when I'm with my wife, she sings "It's a Small, Small World."
Yeah.
It's a Gary Shandling joke. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about. We're going to actually show a clip from what you would call the Naughty Show, and we're going to talk about that end of things on the next. So watch this clip of the naughtier side of hypnotism by Rick Boltes, and we'll be back on the last show.
All right, now, what you're going to notice, when I count from 1 to 3, you're going to stand up. You're going to turn around. You're going to notice that there is a person in that chair, and you are a stripper. You must dance for that person in your chair to earn all your money. On the count of 3, stand up, eyes open, turn around. 1, 2, 3, turn around. And there's a sexy, sexy person. And open your eyes and dance.
Well, that was an interesting show.
Yeah.
Well, before we even get to that, I want to show a picture. Hold on, we're going to throw this picture up, Joseph. This guy deeply wrapped around you. 2 hands full of buns, of your buns here.
My buns,
We're going to throw that picture up. Now, tell me what happened. He's got that picture up. Tell me what happened in that shot.
Okay, this was a show in Tabor, Iowa. It was...
It wasn't a show. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's because you weren't there, right? It's because you weren't there. It was a show in Tabor, Iowa. I didn't say I didn't enjoy it. That's not what I said. I just said it was a show. Okay, there's a difference. But this show in Tabor, Iowa, the rural areas, they hardly get a chance to see this type of entertainment. And so I make it a point, and you've traveled a lot of rural areas, which they're great audiences.
Not funny. Of course I'm in rural areas.
They're great, great, great areas. And so we were doing a show. I was doing the second show that night, and I do a thing called my Night of Naughty Hypnosis show.
Mm-hmm. We saw a clip from that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And it's selling out all over, thank God, especially after COVID, but that's a whole other story. But so at this particular skit, what I did was I told all the guys on stage that when I snap my fingers, you open your eyes, I'm the best looking female you've ever seen before in your life.
They got to be under for that.
Yes.
I'm looking at you right now, and I can't
yeah,
get there.
You couldn't,
I can't get there.
You couldn't put enough lipstick or a wig on me to make me look good.
I can't get there.
Yeah, that's a deep, it's depth, it's deep. I can't even get women to think about me like that as a male. So what happens is they actually think that. This guy happened to be married. His wife was in the audience. And I told them it doesn't matter whether you're married or not, you will want to be with me. And this guy was so funny, obviously from the picture, the video alone was, his wife was cracking up because I said, are you married? He goes, yes. I go, do you care? He goes, no, I got to be with you. And I said,
what?
And I said, would you like to dance? And he said, yes. And, well, the picture tells 1,000 words.
Yeah, well, it tells more than 1,000 words.
Yeah.
It does more. So that's what happened. So I always wondered about that type of, because people let themselves go. They dance like nobody's looking. You ever heard that term, dance like nobody's watching? They dance like nobody's watching.
The country song, sure.
And everybody's watching. And then a big thing is that you video these shows and people see them and they can't believe they did any of it.
Well, a lot of times they don't remember it because it's like the dream state.
What do you mean?
It's a dreamy state. So you drift in and out of. Remember how you were saying you lost time. You lose time. You do, because it's like a dreamy state. When you dream, you don't remember every dream you have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
No, I don't.
You know, and thank God I don't. Mm-hmm. You know, and so what happens is they will forget certain things. Now, whether it's selective or not, I couldn't tell you. It's just, it happens. And so a lot of them will be very curious. So what I do at the end of my show now, because I added this because I think it's really cool, is that they remember nothing. As a matter of fact, when I bring them out, I tell them that they don't even think they were hypnotized, and they're mad at me because they wasted their money because I watched a YouTube video on how to hypnotize people. And they don't think they were hypnotized.
And that's the suggestion.
At the end of the show. So when they wake up, they're mad because they don't think they were hypnotized. They wasted their time. But what I tell them is once I shake your hand, it comes flooding back in vivid color in your mind very instantly. So when I shake their hand, their demeanor,
they complain, they go,
their demeanor goes from, it's funny to watch expressions from mad to like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Where's the exit? You know, that kind of a thing. So.
Well, that's funny you should mention that because I told him this story. Long before I ever got married, I was hypnotized by a woman in San Diego, and I just heard her talking, and the next thing up, so I lost time, right?
Right.
So I lost like 40 minutes, although she gained about 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 hours after that. I don't know. But that's the common thing, losing time, right?
Right.
I lost time. Now, why is it? Why is it that it just seems like, oh, this isn't, and it's over with?
Well, think about, again, we're talking about how it mocks sleep, okay? So if it mocks sleep, you're going to have some of the same characteristics. You're going to forget things. Think about this. You go to sleep, you're very, very tired at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and the next thing you know, which seems like only maybe an hour or a couple hours later, you're waking up and your alarm's going off.
Correct.
That's the same concept.
I don't remember any of that happens.
Or think about surgery. If you go in surgery and they knock you out in surgery, think about how fast that goes. And they say, "Oh, we had you under for 6 hours."
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah. So that's the concept of it. Really, it's just the subconscious mind just shuts down and just loses the track of time. So
right.
Just like sleeping.
Which brings me to my next question. I have all these hypnosis questions for you. You don't mind answering them?
You've been on the internet again, haven't you?
I've been on the internet. How is it they make people stim between two crossboards? That's a common. Do you ever do that?
Yes, it's called total body catalepsy.
Now you're using another big word.
Okay, it's basically what it does.
Catalepsy?
Yeah, what they do. Now they have actually, it used to be a common thing to do, but you can't get insured for it anymore. So the people that do it now actually are doing it at their own risk. Uh-huh. Okay. Now I'm not saying it's dangerous, but if you think
hypnotize them to sign the waiver, you will sign this non-disclosure. No, I'm just kidding.
I wasn't never here.
Right.
You were never here. Even if they sign a disclosure, you know how that goes. Yeah. But so I don't do it. But here's how it works. I have done it. Basically, what you do, and you have to pick the right subject. The subject has to be deep enough,
skinny enough.
No. You could do it if you were deep enough.
God.
It would just be like sitting on a speed bump instead of, you know, or, on the side of a mountain, kicking your legs, But, so basically all they do is, you have to be deep enough, and they just start from the top of your head all the way down, and they make your body a rigid piece of steel. You can't move, it's solid, and every muscle, every fiber is just tense and tight, and they lay you across the table, and at that point in time, it's so tight that somebody can sit on you. Some people can stand on you.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right.
How is that possible? That would never be possible.
It is possible. I've seen it many times. But the problem with it is, here's the minute problem is why I don't do it anymore. Is because you remember how we talked about the emergency, the phone ringing or something happening?
Yeah.
Let's say you've got this person sprawled across there,
geez.
and the fire alarm goes off.
Then everything.
And most of the time, see, they put it right here. So it's all in your neck. So even a 150-pound person sitting on you is going to cause issues.
That's just amazing.
So not that it's inherently dangerous, it's more of common sense that if that emergency, and you never know what's going to happen. I have actually, at a hotel where I was doing a convention, hypnotizing people during the alarm going off. Because they came on and said, "No worry about the alarm." Well, I can't stop the show, so I've got to condition them that the alarm is part of the show, so then they go deeper. It's a weird thing, but it can be done. But if that alarm goes off and your catalepsy, all of a sudden your body collapses, you're going to have injuries, especially if you got a 150-pound person sitting on you.
The great thing about you is you do everything. You do therapy and you do entertainment. Do you have a website or something like that?
Yes, I do. It's very simple. Hypnotistrick.com.
That's it.
That's it. You
I
go
can't
there.
remember that. We're going to put that down here on the link there, hypnotistrick.com. Now, could I could you hypnotize my wife not to yell at me? Would that work?
Well, there's this thing in hypnosis that says we can only hypnotize people to do what they want to do or don't want to do.
Oh, well, then
I think she enjoys it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's good.
But knowing you and your wife, I can see why she enjoys it. So
it's such an easy link to have there.
Yeah.
Well, one of my last questions is, I'm intrigued. Another thing, hypnotism is used in pop culture movies all the time, right? And
of course,
lots of times when somebody gets scooped up by a UFO, they don't, like my favorite alien abduction movies, it always involves people being hypnotized to unleash the trauma. Is part of that, maybe not the UFO, but part of that is based in reality, right?
Okay, so again, if you buy into the whole UFO thing, that's fine. But what you're really asking, if I hear you right, is can hypnosis help trauma?
Correct.
Yes, a lot.
But trauma you weren't aware of that you've just kind of tucked
well,
away in the
those
dark
would be
recesses.
hidden, hidden thoughts, things that you don't want to remember that you suppress memory. Those would be something that you would suppress because as the mind is very complex, it also protects itself and it protects.
It's funny you should mention that.
It protects the body.
I don't remember ever performing in Arkansas, but I'm sure I did. But I think I've suppressed all those memories of those crappy shows in Arkansas.
Yeah, and we don't want to bring those back or the video. we'll leave it out there in suppressed land. But suppressed memories can pop up during a hypnotic show, and that's why there's certain things that I always say during my show that keep those from doing that. Okay.
It sounds like you're pretty cautious, even though it's a hilarious show. You're very cautious.
Oh, I am. My main focus point is my subjects. Without my subjects, I would have no show.
Okay. Because you do after proms, you do corporate events, you do comedy clubs.
That's the good thing about what I do, and not a lot of hypnotists can do it. And I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody else, but I have that dexterity where I can at 7 o'clock, I could do a church function. 8 o'clock, I could do a post-prom. 9 o'clock, I could be doing a Night of Naughty Hypnosis show.
You've done it.
I've done it.
You've done it.
I've done it, yes.
Well, if you want to use him, it's hypnotistrickballs.com.
Nope. Hypnotistrick.com.
That's even easier.
Yeah, that's easy. It's simple.
That's even easier.
Yeah, I don't know how I got it, but I did. Hypnotistrick.com. And I'll throw my number out there if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
402-689-8005. Give me a call. I travel the whole United States.
Are you going to snap me out of it? What's the deal with the snapping, by the way?
Well, the snapping again it's It's kind of like the watch thing you never talked about yet.
Yeah.
The watch
the
thing.
pocket watch and the snap.
It's a fixation point. The watch is a fixation point. Is all it is.
Okay.
They don't do that anymore because I'll tell you something that really happened. This is actually a joke, but it's funny. So I was doing a old folks home one time, and I figured I'd use the old technique because they're used to it.
Pocket watch.
So I was using the pocket watch, and I was waving it, and I said, "Everybody's getting tired now. Just your eyes are closing. Everybody's eyes closed." And all of a sudden, the watch slipped out of my hand and hit the floor, and it just broke into pieces. And I said, "Oh shit!" It took a week to clean that room up. So.
And on that, Rick Voltes, thank you for being on the last show.
Appreciate it.
This has been the last show on Televida. Thank you, Guillermo. We'll see you next week.